That's what I've been trying to like struggling with the pod is just like it's fun interviewing people. I have fun doing the solo ones, fun talking music, but in terms of the amount of time it takes, like it almost takes longer to do these. I don't know why actually. It almost seems like it takes a longer amount of time to do them. Maybe because I don't have the process down yet or the exact format down, but and then there's not as much of a back end like I said, like it's more of a closed loop. Whereas like YouTube, you put something up and it's constantly pushing it out. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just not good at promoting myself. I think that's why YouTube works well for me because I can make a piece of art, a video, a song, and then I have a built-in audience based on the stuff I've made, and it kind of like pushes it. That's why I like YouTube. It's like I feel like it's the last platform of. Whereas like Facebook, it's like you got to pay to post something. Instagram is becoming a little more like that. Instagram is becoming a little too commercialized for me. I don't like all the ads on there. I don't like
me neither. It's annoying. Even like Twitter, they're doing that now. You can promote tweets, and it's like I find myself just blocking like Mazda and Bank of America like constantly on Twitter.
That's what I mean. It started out as something that's really cool, but then I feel like it always turns to money, and it's like, well. Because I feel like that's what ruined Facebook, honestly, for like musicians and artists. When it used to be, I remember the day that they changed that. I had a post. I think it was one of the posts from when we played at. We had that video. I think Steph took or Brian took of us over at the record store playing. Me, you, and Pat. And that was that posted amazingly well. And then
really,
it was
cool.
Organic. Yeah,
I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
And it was. I think it was also when we released Wild Lies. It was like all along the same, it was like a picture or video from that.
Couple weeks, I think.
And it had this organic reach explosion, which was awesome. And then the next like week, I posted something, and it was like completely like dead. And it was like, what happened between? Because like the organic reach of that's how it used to be. Is if something was like shared and like had this organic drive to it, it would be promoted more.
Right.
And then it shifted to. Hey, do you want to reach 1,200 people in your local area?
Yeah, exactly. The model was a model change.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about Facebook is it never made any sense as a money making operation because like nobody paid for anything on there really, and you could, they sold ad space, but that's very spurious. I think. Yeah. The idea of putting an ad in a timeline, it's not the same as putting an ad in front of a video. It just doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
Because you could just keep scrolling.
Well, it's like Instagram too.
Yeah, and Facebook owns them, right?
Yeah.
And I think that some stats that just were released is that the average amount of time that people spend on Facebook has dropped like 20% in the last year, which is a lot of time less. Yeah. I never go on Facebook anymore. I use the Messenger occasionally.
I check the messages because people send me stuff for the channel, but
I just have it on my phone. It's like a texting app. It's just like
Messenger.
I just use it as like a Wi-Fi text. That's all it is.
Right.
And that's the only thing it's useful for, in my opinion. Where
like the group PAX chat is cool because I don't know those dudes, but I can still kind of like contact them. Or I don't have their phone numbers, I should say. I know some of them, don't know some of them, and it's like, we can all kind of congregate on here. And
it's an easy way to get a group together to figure out a plan, which is probably the only. And if let's be real, you could use a lot of other apps for that, but it just happens that everyone already had this built-in presence on Facebook. I feel like the changes in the model of that company have just been such a disastrous sort of move for them. Yeah. And I can't understand what they're doing.
What they're doing either, and it just feels very. Maybe it makes some sense. Maybe on the books, in the books it makes sense, like money books or whatever, balancing the bottom line. But I feel like the users from everything, just what is that called? Rhetorical, anecdotal. Anybody I've talked to, and obviously this conversation too. Freddie was saying that too. He's like, dude, it's a fucking ghost town. It's interesting. I noticed some of the older YouTuber guys like that have been around there for a while. They have like a pretty solid music groups and Facebook groups, and there's still people active who are searching specific information in smaller groups. But in terms of like, I don't know, people posting, and it kind of seems like honestly like the older generation have kind of taken it to it.
Yeah, it's kind of just parents. There's a few groups that I belong to that I think are cool because they're like Warhammer stuff.
The best thing is the groups now.
It's really all there is that's kind of...
Because I've been thinking about putting some videos in there because that seems to be a big one for like Bo and this guy Cuckoo.
Why not?
They seem to have pretty solid Facebook followings, but I don't know if that's because they've been on YouTube for 2x, 5x years. Or
possibly, or they got started on Facebook when it was really big.
Yeah.
When it was really like very populated.
Yeah.
And that might be the thing. It's just like a timing thing.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't hurt.
That's why. Yeah.
There's no, like I said, you don't have to like stress out about it. Just throw them on there and see what happens.
Yeah.
No, it's a weird thing though.
It is.
I don't know.
That's kind of like what I was getting back to about like the political podcast with you is, because what I've realized is like the podcasting platform. I think it would be amazing for some sort of show along those lines. Whereas like music and the kind of things that I'm doing and putting on there and interviewing and that we're doing, chats and stuff, it's awesome, but it's almost like supplementary to the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the channel is the main driver of growth and the main driver of like finding people interested in the same stuff. But the podcast is like I don't feel there's a lot of people searching for like music recording. I might be wrong, but from the 6 months I've been doing it,
I think that podcasts are just a bit more niche in a way.
Niche as like
they're just a little bit, the audience is not as big in general. I mean, when you think about it, YouTube, like when everyone started noticing podcasts was probably what, Serial?
Yeah.
That was about 3 years
definitely.
ago.
Definitely. That's when I remember like you guys, I think you guys told me about that.
Yeah. And I had liked a couple, I had occasionally listened to some podcasts before that, but Serial was the first one that everyone got obsessed with and like blew up the genre. I was like, oh, this is cool. This can be something more
cool.
than... Yeah, this can be something bigger than just, like...
Because podcasts were around for a while before that.
Yeah.
Somebody like Mark Maron, I think he's been on there for... Obviously, he has one of the... Again, he's a legacy user, too. I think he was around... I think he's like 800 episodes deep or something. So that's
he's been on forever. But I think
8
that...
years.
I think that his... he had an audience that was, like, not small, but not tremendous, but like really, really devoted to him. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the model for a while. And they weren't like podcasts were not a thing that were like everyone listened to until a couple big shows broke that barrier.
That's what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, nobody was talking about. You didn't hear like regular people talk about like what podcasts they listened to until a couple big NPR ones.
Got into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, it kind of came out and became a cultural phenomenon, I guess. But I think that even now that happened, the average big YouTube channel has way more subscribers than the average big podcast. Like, go on Patreon and look at the big podcasts. There's still nothing compared to, like, PewDiePie or whatever. Yeah. Like Jake Paul makes, like, the most popular Patreon podcast look pathetic. That's a lot of alliteration there. I didn't mean
Say
for
that
it to be.
5 times.
Yeah, fast. I didn't mean for that. But he does, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that it's because YouTube has a bigger reach and it's been around longer as sort of a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is my theory.
No, I think you're right. And like interestingly enough too, with the PewDiePie and like Mark Maron, some of the people we reference, I think a lot of it's timing too, and when these people got on the platforms, Mm-hmm. And obviously Serial, like you're saying, broke the kind of model or kind of got it out, everything out there. But because that's the other thing too, like we were saying with Facebook and some of these other YouTube guys, like you don't know, like since it's just funny, man, like how all this stuff kind of comes down to timing.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to social media, it's funny. I feel like we've been talking mostly about the social media aspect.
Well, it's a big part of the world.
I know,
it's a really big part of media.
It's crazy.
Media is...
Everybody has a podcast now.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but like I said, they're not hard to make.
Especially if you're doing any type of video or if you have any type of music, recording equipment. The big thing for me is I was reading this book by Gary Vee. He's like an inspirational guy, social media guru type dude. And I was reading it on a plane. I got so hyped up, and he was, saying podcasts are definitely like one of the big. People don't really consider them as like social media, but they're almost as big as like all these things we were talking about: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And what's cool about it is, again, it's just another place. Because like the real reason for me too is I don't like the idea of having all my subscriber base and all the people that follow the channel and everything just on there, because YouTube's been around for a while and it probably will continue to be around for a while. But the big thing everybody always says is on social media you rent, you don't own.
That's true. Yep.
If Google says one day, oh, fuck YouTube, we don't want to do it anymore, tomorrow they could pull the plug.
Yeah.
Or if all the YouTube users, all the Jake Paulers, PewDiePiers. If they, it's all younger kids, but if like
social experiment, deleting my channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wait, what? No.
And that's what I mean. It's like, who knows? Like, I know my channel's not even that big, but I was talking to Bo a little bit about this, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. I was talking to Steven a little bit about this, another YouTuber, and he was like, I don't want to talk about it. It's definitely something people think about, and I just don't like that idea of, here, you build this thing for years, and then, I mean, I guess that's kind of the social media thing, though, too. We're saying Facebook, at some point, that was huge for people.
Yeah.
Shifts over to Twitter or whatever, shifts to Instagram.
Whatever it was.
That was the big thing for me. That's why I started the pod, was because I like the idea of diversifying. Yeah, I like the idea of doing a podcast because it seems easy in terms of what we do and like you're saying, the skill set that we have.
Right, it's like, a natural sort of...
It's like, yeah, why not?
Well, it's like a smart... The thing about media and like getting a reach or whatever is you're not... Putting all your eggs in one basket for anything is usually not a good idea.
Yeah.
Especially if that basket is controlled by a very fickle giant corporation that literally could not care less.
Yeah, like Facebook switching the algorithm in a week.
The actual sort of user experience where so you're better off not trusting them to keep things the way that makes sense for you, generally speaking. Not that they're like nefariously evil, usually. More just, we'll see what happens. Yeah. They don't really, they don't know what they're doing either. They're all like our age.
Right, that's the whole thing. They have no idea like what they've created.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it goes back to like that Facebook thing you said about when the stock tanked or something because they spent all this money on security.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, that means they weren't spending any money.
It does beg the question, where was that money going before? Obviously not security.
Yeah. But that's like a perfect example. It's like, it's just funny, man, like how these things get tweaked and then change and then new ones come up. Like Snapchat, I don't really know if that's even, is that still popular? I don't know, maybe
no,
not really. I
mean,
generation.
Maybe I'm too old for Snapchat, but I never really got into it.
Never had one, yeah.
But I do think that it's sort of run its course as like a big phenomenon, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
What do you think about, here, hold on, let me take a quick break. I gotta just stop this and start it again because shuts off.
Oh, sure.
So Tim, what do you think about like social media then? Where do you think we are in terms of the social media landscape? Do you think there's still going to be more huge social media companies, or because that kind of feels like we have these big players. There's not a lot of room and space for other stuff.
Yeah, we're in the consolidation phase, I think, of this stage of capital where things exist and they're massive. And generally speaking, anything new that comes up is going to get scooped up by them, Yeah.
Right, like Facebook and Instagram.
Right. You look at, I like to use the Coca-Cola example. There's like 3 drink companies in the world, and anything that you think might be a smaller company is actually owned by one of them.
Well, it's like Nestle.
Right. They all own it.
Or are owned.
A very small number of companies own everything in each market. And I think there was a time when that was being, quote, disrupted, unquote, and everything was kind of little small groups and startups were owning things. But now it's reached a point where they have gotten so huge. They're the new Coca-Cola. And anytime, like PayPal buying Venmo.
Yeah.
It's like, this new thing just popped up. Well, no, actually, it's going to get scooped up by
They do it for free, and we don't know how they do it.
Yeah. How they making money? We don't know, but we can't let them undercut us, so we have to buy it. And let's be honest, that was probably Venmo's business model. Yeah. Get bought by PayPal.
I feel like that's a lot of those startups' business model, you know? And that's like the office quote, like I think Ryan or somebody says it, like, actually the first rule of Silicon Valley is to never think about how you're going to make
Don't think about the money. Yeah. Exactly. That's probably true. Where like I said,
I think that's true. I think it's true to an extent. That's like the Apple thing, user experience, you know? If you make a product that achieves on like an experience that people don't know that they want or don't know that they need, but they just need it, like attracted to it. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Well, it's a pretty important thing to have that that it factor. Yeah. For whatever. But I do think that generally speaking, if a new social media company pops up, it's gonna be something that. Because these have happened. Like, every time something controversial happens on Twitter where, like, Jack, the CEO, does something stupid, there's, like, a Twitter clone made within the next, like, 48 hours. And they always get, like, 1,000 people on, and then everyone's like, wait, this sucks, no one's here. Yeah. And then just go back to Twitter. And I think that the problem is, at this point, everyone's kind of entrenched, and the companies are really entrenched, and it would be a big undertaking to break that mold. And even if they did, it would probably get scooped up by a big company relatively quickly, and all the problems would follow it, of that sort of environment where companies just get merged into bigger ones.
Yeah.
I mean, and now the wheels are off in terms of how big a company can be. I mean, I think AT&T just merged with some other huge
I heard about that
company, and some unbelievably giant merger, and they've already started taking advantage of that by cutting different streaming services that they had in a way to you cut a streaming service. Like this one particular one whose name escapes me. I'm sorry. It's like an indie film streaming service.
it's not Seed and Spark, is it?
No, it's maybe they're not all indie, but they're like certain films that are like smaller award-winning films. There's a streaming service just for that.
IFC?
No, I forgot the name of it.
Okay, but something along those lines.
We'll put it in the show notes. But I think that they're canceling it basically as a way to shore up their own sort of market, where it's like, well, we don't want Time Warner, for instance, being able to use this service that was just like a thing that all companies could use. We're gonna cancel it now that we own it, and then we're gonna start a proprietary streaming service that only can work on our network or whatever.
Right.
So it's consolidation and then splintering. So the actual ability to access media gets harder as these companies get bigger, and that's a worrying trend if you're worried about like being able to access the artifacts of our culture, because they're not, generally speaking, people don't have a whole wall of DVDs anymore. You assume you could find it somewhere online, but that isn't a given. If it would make more financial sense to make it harder to find something, they're gonna do that.
Right.
So what I'm saying is hoard Blu-rays. No, I don't think you need to yet, but
there's some stuff that is OOP, like out of print. Because it's funny that you bring that up, because I was over at the thrift store looking through some of the DVDs the other day, just because of the same reason. There's certain ones, I usually go to the library. Check out your local library. That's always a good place to get DVDs.
They really do have
They have like everything.
The New Paltz Library has an amazing DVD selection.
And then they have the interlibrary loan system where they can reach pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's actually another like ghost ops system that they can tap into if they don't find it in there. That goes to like universities, other types of libraries, like more that's even further of a reach. So if you're looking to just watch a movie once, and like it pays to not have to buy it or not have to have a copy of it or find a streaming of it. But that's what I was looking at, was these DVDs, and I was like, oh well, there's got to be rare DVDs. But it's funny because I was thinking, well, I could. With the video game stuff, you can find some old games that are rare, and then they sell for a good price because there's not that many copies. But DVDs, it seems like they're like almost worthless now. Like 99 cents, you can pretty much buy any DVD you want.
Which is weird. I mean, I guess because the DVD would always kind of felt like ephemeral to me.
Yeah. Like
maybe because they were just so sort of flimsy and they got damaged so easily. But I feel like they were just never the best.
And even the cases were never like super nice, I feel like.
I always liked a good VHS tape.
Yeah.
The case was nice, it had a real weight to it.
Like I feel like DVD cases always felt like empty or something, or they just felt really chintzy or cheap. Like the physical case, when you opened it, it was always just kind of like the thinnest piece of paper they could shove in there. And
of course.
I guess it's just a money thing again, but.
Yeah, it's a money thing. But I've always, I don't know, I think that I just have had so many DVDs like crap out on me that I don't even really trust them. But I do understand the value. I think that you're probably better off just somehow finding a way to download stuff and getting a terabyte of space on a hard drive and just filling it with your favorite movies. Favorite movies and television shows.
But so because this spawned out of that consolidation thing we were talking about.
Yeah, it's exactly because it's they can as they consolidate their ability and consolidate their power and ability to just own everything. It gets tougher and tougher to access things in a certain way. I mean, right now you can find whatever you want basically on one of these streaming services or rent something via a streaming service, right? But that might change as net neutrality gets phased out and it suddenly becomes legal for a cable company to basically censor a streaming service they don't like.
Yeah.
Because it could financially behoove them to say, no, you can't have. We're not going to let you carry like Google Play because we have our own version of Google Play that you have to get if you want to stream on whatever cable network.
Yeah.
You know, and that just. I sincerely doubt we're going to hit like a dystopian future where you're not going to be able to find any movies, but it is going to become. Right. It is going to become a weird battleground over who owns the rights to what, and you know, you might get screwed out of something if you're in the wrong part of the country, you don't have the right internet provider or whatever, where it's like, well, you only get this internet provider and they don't have the rights to Warner Brothers or whatever, like, which would suck, you know, suddenly you're now cut off from things. This is all hypothetical.
Yeah. It's just so weird to me. It's like, I just wonder what's next, you know, in terms of all this like social media streaming stuff and consolidation of the social media. Like I just can't picture another. I guess that's always how it goes though, right? But like it seems like you got YouTube, which does video really well, Vimeo, which is kind of like for, you know, producers or people. Like I was talking to Sean about that. It's more of a. That's funny. Like that one's not as popular. It's not the same exact thing. It's more for portfolios for people who do in the industry.
There's more like real work on there.
Like documentaries. Yeah.
I say real and like this is a thing that might be released.
You know what I mean? Because it's like private. They're like pushing it around to people, which is also interesting. I think that's what's cool about YouTube is again like all this stuff brings the creation to the public and democratizes everything. But so you got those two for video. Like I can't picture another platform swooping in and changing that. There's some that have tried, but all that have failed miserably.
They've all been gimmicks.
Yeah,
is the thing.
Like you were saying about the Twitter thing. It's like every time Jack, I can't believe that guy's even still CEO. I thought
he's such a dumbass. It's
like,
unbelievable.
It's crazy. Like you said, like every time that happens, somebody swoops in and buys another thing. And then you have Reddit, which is actually something I never really tapped into, just because the user base on there seems to be exceptionally like negative.
It depends on the subreddit. Like I think that the mainstream, the bigger the subreddit, it's one of those weird Reddit rules. The bigger the subreddit, the worse it is. And I can't tell if that's just a part of human nature
like part
or
of the culture on there, though.
I think that it's a very contrarian culture, and it can come across as.
What does that mean exactly?
They're just like
contrarian.
I disagree with that because you agree with it.
Contrary,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a weird culture of that on there, where like if you.
Yeah.
If something is popular in the mainstream or like an enjoyable thing, there's a big portion of Reddit that will find a reason to hate it.
Hate it, yeah. Just because it's like
which
Reddit.
is just so annoying. Like, who cares? But again, with Reddit, there's like a bunch of Reddit clones, and they're all terrible.
Yeah.
They're all worse than the real ones somehow. And I don't know how.
I like how simple Reddit is. That's something I definitely give it props for.
The good thing about Reddit is there's
like who'd have thought
it takes
text-based
a second to make a subreddit, and you can. And now they can host their own images, which is nice.
Yeah.
You can make a subreddit about anything, and there is one about everything.
So what would you consider Reddit's more of like a forum type social media site? Like
Reddit's like kind of a throwback. It is basically a forum.
It feels like
right? It's like a message board
era, like Web 1.0 era.
Yeah, it's like a message board.
Yeah.
Basically, which don't really exist anymore.
Board, yeah.
And the only thing that's different about it than the typical. I guess I have to go to class.
Cool.
That's typical about that's different about. I have a minute. That's different about it than the typical message board is the. It's kind of ephemeral compared to them. You know, they archive everything forever, and Reddit deletes stuff after a certain amount of time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Well, it doesn't. I don't think it gets deleted. It gets archived, or you can't. You can't participate with it anymore. It just exists.
I've seen posts like that. Yeah.
Stuff like that, and I feel like the old school message board, you could like necromance a thread and find a thread that was like 10 years old and rebuild, start it up again.
Yeah, right. Necromance.
Yeah, that's what they call it. But you can't do that anymore. You can't do that with Reddit.
So just as a quick wrap up, then Facebook. I guess like Instagram now is kind of the new Facebook, but even that seems to be getting, to me, I don't know anything about this shit, but that seems to be getting ruined by. The ads and things like that. I feel like Instagram was a lot better when it was just kind of like there weren't these random like American Express ads and
there's so much stuff
stupid.
I agree.
Promoted posts that I don't give a fuck about.
I agree.
Because those are the things that make me want to use those platforms less.
Yeah, whenever I see one of those, I'm like, why am I even here?
I just wonder, like, where does it go from here? You know, because you had something like Instagram TV. I don't really think that's doing so hot. I don't really use it. Don't hear anybody really using it. I don't know. It's strange, man. I just wonder. I guess to wrap up the conversation, it's just funny that like saying like, oh well, this stuff could disappear. It kind of seems like the big players that are here are going to be here.
Yeah.
And it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna take who knows what. Like we won't know what the next thing is until it's here. I think.
No, it's gonna be weird. I think I don't think anyone's gonna be able to predict it.
Yeah.
I do think that it's gonna what we have is gonna persist for a while, and I think that whatever comes next is gonna be either something totally out of the box. There's like no middle ground here. It's gonna be something totally out of the box and weird. It will, or it'll be sort of a continuation of the status quo without any kind of risks being taken, just more corporate friendly. I think the only thing that's a guarantee is that it will be bought by one of these huge companies. You know, it'll be a proprietary, like Apple's gonna buy it or Google's gonna buy it or whatever.
YouTube,
and
oh, the YouTube's Google,
exactly, YouTube's owned by Google. But like eventually, this is all gonna be one giant umbrella company, and
all
we'll all be living in like the Jeff Bezos pods. And,
right. We didn't even touch on Amazon.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about it, but it is it's a trend toward consolidation, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing because it is good to have. This is the thing is like I hate to sound negative about this stuff, but it's only because it has been so far. But it doesn't have to be negative. The fact that every piece of ephemera we've ever produced as a culture can be found anywhere in the world, in theory, is super cool.
Yeah,
and is
really
great.
cool.
That's like a really good technological advance.
I think it's a lot of people's favorite aspect of the internet.
Yeah, you can find anything anywhere. It's awesome, and that's a good thing that's a good technological advancement. The negative part of that has been that this is like weirdly a 21st century technology, but the problem with it is like a 19th century problem where it's all being consolidated into the hands of like 10 people, which is like
whose interests are making money.
Right. It's like Standard Oil and it's basically the Gilded Age but with apps instead of mines. And I think that, you know, you're working all day in the app mines. You're farming for clicks or whatever. But that's the thing. It's a new technology. It's great.
Culture,
just like in the original Gilded Age, the fact that you could build a car in a couple hours is unbelievable. One of the most amazing things that's ever happened is automation, and the Industrial Revolution's ability to produce goods is astounding. The downside was that it was all controlled by a tiny group of people, and it was a very, very harsh consolidation. And they needed to be forced apart. They didn't do it by their own will. And this is the same thing that's happening now. It's a great technology. It's super cool, and it has a lot of potential, but it's suffering the same problem. And again, the only way to make them not do that is to literally make them not do that. Because they're not going to decide to just let the public own this stuff.